Jesus-like character from mythology. Jesus-like character from mythology, whether you believe it or not, the tale of Jesus Christ shares many parallels with mythological figures who came before him. Common aspect can be traced all the way back to the of ancient Egypt. The New Testament was written between 50 and 100 CE, and many of the mythological people depicted in this gallery existed much before that. But this is not to suggest that one invalidates the other. The fact that these ancient narratives share so many basic aspects is extremely remarkable. Explore the legendary figures who are similar to Jesus in the gallery now. Osiris. In many ways, the myth of the Egyptian god Osiris mimics the narrative of Jesus. Osiris, like Jesus, died and rose again. He was appointed as the judge of the dead. According to 2 Timothy 4:1-2, Jesus will judge the living and the dead, indicating that he played his duty. There is more tough. Osiris was likewise betrayed by a sibling who was very close to him. Judas betrayed Jesus in the same way. Asclepius. Asclepius, also known as Asclepius in Roman mythology, was a Greek god of healing. He too was capable of performing miracles just like Jesus. Asclepius too healed the ill, albeit his tactics were more like those of Jesus' disciples. Instead of healing via faith like Jesus did many times, Asclepius would utilize plaster made of herbs and spices. Asclepius, however, was more than a healer. He is also capable of raising the dead. Attis. There are several similarities between the Greek god and Jesus Christ. To begin with, Attis, like Jesus, was created from a heavenly conception. Attis' narrative is complicated, but it in a nutshell. He died after castrating himself. Then 3 days later, Attis, like Jesus, came back to life. Attis is revered as a man's shepherd by a large number of people. Do you see the parallel of Jesus' story? Adonis. The Greek god and Jesus have many similarities, including a shared worship place. The site of Nativity Church, Jesus' birthplace in Bethlehem, was also used as an Adonis temple. Bethlehem is derived from the Hebrew words bread and house, and literally means bread house. Adonis is associated with fertility and rejuvenation, both of which are strongly related to the harvest. Adonis' disciples, like Jesus, thought he had risen from the dead and ascended to heaven. Dionysus. You may be wondering what the Greek god of wine, also known in Roman mythology as Bacchus, has to do with Jesus. The explanation can be found in a widely held religious practice. The Catholic Eucharist, one of the sacraments and well-known tradition in the Catholic Church, is feeding the blood and body of Christ and Mass. During the banquet, Dionysus shared his blood with his followers as a symbolic method of sharing his essence. Horus. Horus is an ancient Egyptian god of healing, well-being and protection, or the same Jesus in many ways. In fact, their tales are quite similar. Horus, like Jesus, was born to Isis, a virgin mother. Isis and her son Horus were also ordered to flee to Egypt with baby Jesus to avoid a treaty, just as Joseph was. But there is so much more. Horus was born of a virgin, had 12 siblings. walked on water, preached a sermon on the mount, performed miracles, was executed beside the thieves, resurrected from the dead and ascended into heaven. According to the BBC, sounds similar, right? Heracles. Heracles is a son of God, much like Jesus, Zeus. Both Heracles and Jesus were threatened with death as youngsters, yet both survived. Hera sent to serpent to kill Heracles, and King Herod put a hit on every infant in an attempt to kill baby Jesus. Heracles is also said to have died and ascended into the company of the gods, much as Jesus did. Romulus. Romulus was the city's first founder. You have probably heard the story about Romulus and Remus being fed by a she-wolf. But like Jesus, Mother Romulus' biological mother was a virgin. They were also both targeted by royal as newborns, King Amelius and King Herod, respectively. Both Romulus and Jesus were God's sons, and both of their earthly fathers working as carpenters. Odysseus. Odysseus, also known as Ulysses, is the hero of Homer's epic poem, The Odyssey. He too has features in common with Jesus. He battled at sea with his traveling companions, who made repeated mistakes, just as Jesus. Followers did not believe him at first. Odysseus, like Jesus, came from a carpentry family. He ended up presenting himself as a leader who, like the Christ, struggled through his life. Glycon. In Roman mythology, this ancient deity was the son of the god Apollo. Right now, you are probably wondering how the a snake has anything to do with Jesus. It certainly does. Glycon, like Jesus, was born miraculously and came to earth as the divine incarnation. Glycon was also capable of performing miracles such as healing the ill and reviving the dead. These mythological beings resembled Jesus Christ in ancient times. Who knows, maybe in this modern era, similar characters could be we don't understand.